See, it's a good thing I checked. I don't have any audio. All right. What is up, buddy? This is exciting. I haven't had a chance to lecture you yet. Huh? Oh, why? It's going to get... It does. This does feel like a motivational speaker, Mike. This is all about unlocking your potential. Excellent. Well, it's funny you should mention, because I do have something very motivating to tell you. Everybody, I got some good news. It's a big day, everybody. It's a big day for you. I don't think you realize how big a day it was. But today's a big day. And do you know why today's a big day? No, you don't get to go home. Well, I say that, but today we're doing Mongo, which is your first database. And that means, as of today, you are all full stack developers. That is right. Everybody, you are full stack developers as of right now. Why do they... You're effing kidding me. Okay. Okay, great. Now I have to start that spiel from the beginning. Good news, everyone. Thank you, Victoria. Oh, yeah, just try... We can hear you, just not see you. How can you... Weird. But no, the camera's working now. It has me. It just... I have it... Okay, we see you now. No more Tony Robbins monologuing. We see you now. Okay. All right. Where was I? So, right. Look at your hands. Everybody, put down your phones and look at your hands. These are the hands of a full stack developer. When you put your head on the pillow last night, you were what? A back-end developer with some front-end experience. But tonight, when you put your head on the pillow, that'll be the head of a full-stack developer, getting some well-deserved shut-eye. You could leave right now, and just you'll have gotten your money's worth. Don't do that. Please don't do that. That's a poor decision, I promise you. We have more to teach you, I promise. But as of today, yeah, you'll now have done front-end, back-end, and database. You will have done the whole loop, which is exciting. And also there's Lola, which is also exciting. Okay, so before I start proper, we're allowed to sleep. No. So not during the lecture, man. That's all I ask. Just so you guys are chatty. I appreciate this. This is awesome. Victoria is. You guys no chatty. Yeah. So before we start, I do need a volunteer. Who is willing to volunteer their completed Tiny app? Preferably a Tiny app that has already been approved as completed. Who's going? Shmoo? All right, cool. Thank you, Shmoo. We will get to that in the second half of today's very well-structured lecture. All right. Ish. So, this is fun. All right. Databases. So what is a database? Well, it's kind of like, there's two parts to a database. There's sort of the store of actual data, the actual like kind of big old bucket of data. And then there's the management system for accessing that data. For basically doing CRUD/bread operations on said data, right? So there are many database management systems out there. a lot of them have like, some of them are similar, some of them are different, some of them are like, we're the exact same thing as this, but for a different like platform, right? And so, yeah, so the point of a database management system, and I will write this down, a database management system, or DBMS, is a system that manages, I'm sorry, that's, no, okay, I'll do that. It's a, I'm sure you guys were ahead of me, system that manages database. So basically it is a program that kind of provides access to a database and kind of maintains that database to optimize database operations. So the most important part is that it's an application that sort of responds to database operations. And what can you imagine are going to be some of our database operations? Maybe you've already learned an acronym that's going to help guide you on what we're going to be doing today. Not REST. Not SQL. Not ACID, though. That's coming late. Like that's some DBMS stuff later. It's CRUD. So I want to think about CRUD and bread, but CRUD. So when we talk about database operations, we're kind of talking about CRUD. Well, we're kind of talking about CRUD and maybe some like what we call schema. And by schema we mean like just defining the shapes of data, kind of making rules to enforce data integrity. That's what a database management system does. It just kind of like lets us do our operations on some bucket of data. And then also we may be able to kind of put in some data integrity rules. That's basically it. So Mongo is one of these DBMSs. Now, we are starting out with Mongo. And I feel like I want to say don't get too like crazy about Mongo. Don't get too like into Mongo as a DBMS, because we're going to be talking about much more common database management systems and like class of database management systems later. Mongo was just a really nice intro into, oh, I'm going to use a database management system. It's going to keep my data. I'm going to connect to my data through my application. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Mongo and how it works, and you're going to use that to kind of build a bit of your apps. You're going to use it in Tweeter, off-brand Twitter. But yeah, this is one DBMS. This is one kind of paradigm. Yes. How could you? I have moved the mic away from my face. It's distorting a bit. Fair enough. I'm a loud talker. All right. Yeah. So Mongo falls into a class of DBMS that is called document DBMSs. So Mongo is a document DBMS, which generally it falls into a class of ones like there's also CouchDB is another one like this, and kind of Redis to some extent. It's a little bit like this, but also there is, who's ever heard of Azure, Microsoft's cloud thing? So they have a document DB, and it's called document DB. And the idea is it's just JSON. That's all you have to remember about Mongo and what makes it different. It's just JSON. It's just going to store records in the JavaScript object notation. It's really good at optimizing those records. It ends up, you'll see the term BSON sometimes, BSON, for binary JSON. Like it does a really good job of like making those as efficient as possible. And so next week you're going to see a relational database management system, which is like, it's a lot stricter in terms of like you have to define schema first before you are able to put in any data. Because a document DB is just JSON, then it's really easy for us to be like, hey, here's a JSON record. And Mongo's like, cool. And that's it. That's the end of that story. So, the structure is pretty simple. There are databases, and each database will have collections, and each collection will have documents. So for Tweeter, you're going to have a Tweeter database, which will have a so you'll probably have a Tweeter database, and you're going to have a collection of tweets, and then each document is going to be an individual tweet. Fair enough? Okay, so let's take a look at the Mongo shell. So when we say shell, shell is another word that often is not exactly interchangeable, but often enough interchangeable with a another way of saying command line interface. A command line interface is and it's kind of important to say this is a user interface. The shell is something that I, as a human, will use to interact with Mongo. This seems like a unnecessary distinction, and we'll get into why it's a necessary distinction when we use our programs to talk to Mongo. But the Mongo shell is a command line interface, user interface. We can put in, we can kind of describe our database operations in this, and it'll make them happen. So, somebody tell me, that's not my cup. Where'd my cup go? There's my cup. All right, what is our, what's our database going to be about? Like, what are we going to make a database of for this lecture? I just need a noun that we can pluralize. Like, not water, but fish. Plural of fish is fish. Oh, but yeah, you can have fishes. All right. Berries. NF oil has berries. All right. So what I'm going to do is I am going to bring up, here's my terminal, and I have the Mongo shell. Okay, so, oh, connection failed. Probably because I'm using a slightly different version of this than you, so I just have to make sure I got my leaf. There's my leaf. Okay, so I'm going to try it again. So now I have this little, greater than symbol, and I can start doing commands here. So the first one I'm going to do is I want to see my DBs. Show DBs. All right. Admin, July 2nd, June 4th. Okay. So I can use any of these DBs. I can use Tweeter because obviously I use this to do my my project evaluations all the time, and people keep on making a Tweeter database. So I can use the Tweeter database. I'm going to show my collections. I have tweets. No surprise there. So now I can say db.tweets. Well, let's take a look at the Mongo shell documentation. MongoDB. Ooh, Mongolian hot pot. I should get that later. Yeah. We're gonna. Oh, they've revamped the website since the last time I checked. Amazing. Let's go to the docs. Yeah. Let's go to the getting started. MongoDB CRUD operations. So we have insert one, read operations, find. So let's find tweets, find. Yeah, I got a lot of tweets. I have a lot of tweets. Now, when I said find, there was nothing in here. By the way, this is just like a little JavaScript stuff, so you can just write JavaScript and this thing works. So I'm going to put in this empty object. This is an empty filter. This filter is basically like, hey, everything's cool, right? So there we go. Maybe I want to have one where the created at is equal to, I guess, 1543363049216, right? Apparently, I created a bunch at that exact moment. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. Okay, yeah, so never mind. There's just that one. Now I can organize this a bit better in my shell by just adding pretty. Oh, that's a little cleaner to look at. At least it would have been. Indent's a little too far. 8 spaces. I feel it's a little too much indent-wise. Look, I'm not going to have a Silicon Valley-esque spaces versus tabs argument here. It just seems a little excessive, is all. Okay, so I did a dot find, created this. Let me try another one. Find one. There's no dot pretty. Okay, they just found the first one that matched this filter, which was just the first thing, right? And it gave me that. So we're able to find one, whereas this one before was technically like it was a collection of that only contained one thing. So we are able to find. So find one, so we have find and find one. All right, so find is the B of bread. Find one is the R of bread, right? So what else should we be able to do? Edit indeed. How do we do that? Well, we have a write operations of insert one. There's create, read, update. Update one, update many, replace one. All right, so we can update one. So we have update many / update one. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that we also have a filter here. When we are doing things, operations on existing records, we can include a filter, and this is going to be really important, especially on update and delete. When you are doing an update operation or a delete operation, you should probably have a filter. If you're doing an update operation or a delete operation without a filter, some part of your tummy should get a little rumbly. Part of you should be like, no, that's not, what am I doing? Like that's, I have learned that panic through pain, as you can imagine. Terrible, terrible accidents are a great teacher. Good decisions come from wisdom, and wisdom comes from bad decisions, as they say. So yeah, when you have, and this is true of find, is that often you'll put in a filter. You don't always have to. You may just want everything, but find is another thing where it's like, it's worth thinking about. Maybe I should have a filter. Spoiler alert, when you get to relational databases using SQL, this is going to be equivalent to the where keyword. You can say, hey, select all records where this equals this. Right? We can, let's take a look at this filter for a moment. Can anyone guess what this filter is doing? just, I know that you're new to this, so just try to read this and try to figure out what does your instinct tell you is happening here. Yo.
So filtering for people who are, I don't know what LT is, but I'm less than, okay, yeah, less than 18 and then reject them. So anyone under 18 doesn't, we don't have to filter.
Okay, so anyone under 18
Years of age,
years of age, I'm assuming, we should set their status to be rejected. So the first thing is a filter, age less than. So you can imagine, like, what are some of the filters that you might want, right? We did one where it was like, this has to be equal to this. But what's some other filters that you might want to, like, what are some other ways you might want to query something? Here's an example of less than. So what else would there be? Greater than. Also, yeah, usually there's with systems like this, and there are many systems like this, there's often also LTE and GTE. Who can guess what those mean? Right, exactly. So we're going to want to do less than or equal, greater than or equal. We may want to have, hey, as long as it's in, so we may have like in, and then we have an array. Or we could have not in, or not, like we could probably not everything that we're doing, right? And there's a few more like that. Yo. Berries, yeah, if they remember. So, yeah, that's a good, if they remember as an example of that. And you may even have, like, where you build up a another query that gets executed. In fact, one of the things I definitely want you to kind of leave this with is an expectation of what you're able to do. Right? Because the things you're going to be able to do with Mongo is going to be the same as the things you're able to do with Postgres, which you're going to get in the week and then use over and over again. So yeah, that's definitely part of things, part of how things do, part of what's up. So the update many, or so the update will have a update filter, and just the filter says like, hey, only perform this action on these items, and then an operation. In this case, and we can read more about update. Let's look at that. So in this case, it is setting the status on that document. So the document has a status and it sets it to reject. But so we have update operators such as set, unset, rename. There's also increment, get min, get max, rename, set, on, insert. So we have a lot of different things that we can do with this, and it's worthwhile looking through this and figuring out what they are. That might be a helpful list of things to know later, because later you're going to be somewhere and you'll be like, oh, I could do this in Mongo. Maybe I can do this here. Which that instinct is a good one to inculcate. So a good one to grow. Just be like, you know, back when I was doing JavaScript, I was able to do this thing. Maybe there's a library to do that in Python. Or, you know, just like, if I was doing this in Node, I just npm install something. Maybe Ruby has a gem for this. That sort of behavior. That's one thing you're going to get used to as a developer. Okay, so we have browse, we have read, we have edited, right? We can back. We can add. So there's the create operations. Insert one and insert many. You will notice here in this description, what does it not have that every other one has had so far? Doesn't have a filter. That's right. Because we're just inserting. We're not filtering. Like if we didn't want to insert these records, we had some reason not to insert them, we'd have put that on beforehand, right? Filtering is a restrictive exercise. There's not really a restriction. We're just kind of putting these in. So yeah, and so we can insert one, or we can insert an array of many. Now, there's one thing I want to point out about this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to show DBs again, right? And I'm going to use berries. Berry DB. It's not how you. That's not the singular. Berry DB, right? Now, in some database management systems, creating a database this quickly and easily, they wouldn't be like, you can't use it, you have to create it first. But in Mongo, it's like, yeah, sure, BuryDB, all right, whatever. Now I've switched to it, I'm using it. If I say show DBs, it's not there yet, but I'm using it. How does that work? All right, well then show collections of the BuryDB. I don't have one. So there's no collections yet, but I'm going to say db dot berries dot insert one. All right. Name BlackBerry. Well, it's a collection of berries, so I'm using the plural here. Collection berries. Insert one, insert many. What do I want to have about? Let's look up the Wikipedia article for BlackBerry, shall we? And hopefully it gives me the plant, not the technology. All right. Lots of species, so I'm not going to include that. An edible fruit produced by many species. Taxonomy.
What kind of information are you looking for that?
That's a good question. I don't even know yet. Yeah, some unique feature. Oh, how about that? Yeah, like thorny true, right? Yeah, because we can have that. Um, yeah. Let's go. Um, oh, how about instead of thorny true, we have some like tags, right? So we're like flowers, thorns, because this is JSON, right? And we can use anything that we can use in JSON. So we can have arrays that have objects that have like we can build this huge hierarchy in one document. Why not? Right? So flowers, thorns, and let me see if glycemic. There's got to be a BlackBerry glycemic index. 25. So glycemic index. I'm going to use the underscore here. 25. All right. We cannot add a function because we cannot express a function in JSON. Acknowledged true. Okay, so it says, sure, I did that. And it also gave me the inserted ID. So if I say db.berries.find, you'll notice this has an underscore ID of object ID, yada, yada, yada. Did I create that object ID? No. It just sort of generated it. Put in some slow berries, man. Let's find out about these slow berries. Also called blackthorn or slow. Okay, wow. This is become an interesting lecture about berries. I like this. All right, so it does flower. Is it thorny? No. Yeah. So we'll also insert slowberry. Slowberry tags it flowers, doesn't have thorns. Let's find out. Okay. Spurs. Yeah, we can put color. Let's just Yeah, the one that's on the. Cool. All right. Um, for those of you in Victoria, she's reading the Wikipedia page, the one that we are also all reading. All right, so slow berry glycemic index. Or yeah, that makes more sense. Somehow, I do not think that the slow berry is going to be on here. Uh, must include slow. Oh, I got an Excel spreadsheet. Did not want that. Okay, yeah, it has. I would imagine it's probably not that sugary, but let's just say that it's 55 for the sake of argument. Okay, so how am I going to find all of the berries who are um, less than 50, like 40? How would I write that? Well, I could do db dot berries dot find, and then here I can say, let's take a look at the example. So I'm going to say what thing it is that I'm actually doing the comparison on. So glycemic index less than 40. Right? So I'm just building a simple object here. And indeed, the only one is the blackberry in this example. Right? So I can start building these out. Now, you'll notice that it didn't make it so that I had to put in a glycemic index, right? So I might have things in here that don't have a glycemic index. Or where I misspelled it that one time, so it's glycemic index without the E, not the first E, because there's two E's, right? So there's no data integrity. You got to be like careful when you put stuff in. That's the trade-off with Mongo. Really easy to set up, but doesn't have the data integrity checks. Okay, so, and then of course the last thing is that we want to delete. So let's delete anything with spurs. So as you can imagine, again, with this, we have the delete one and the delete many. Now, why would you use delete one? Let's say you knew you had one in your system, but let's say you're targeting by ID, right? But technically speaking, delete many does that, right? Why would I use delete one over delete many? Anybody guess?
You don't accidentally delete a bunch that have the same filter?
Well, part of it is that you don't accidentally delete a bunch, yes. So delete one will keep you from like accidentally going too crazy, especially if you like messed up. At least only mess up one record, right? Okay, that's a reason. But there's also a really important one about the difference between delete one and delete many. So let's say that we have 5 records, and the one we want to delete is on the second record, right? So we go to the first one. Does that match the filter? No. We go to the second one. Does it match the filter? Yes. Delete one would stop. I don't need to go through the rest of the records. I already know I'm done. That's what delete one means. Delete many, on the other hand, doesn't know that. So it's going to find this one, and it's going to keep on going. And it's going to keep on going. So if you have a huge database, what you may find yourself doing is like stopping there and then just keeping on going, which means that you may have a much more expensive operation, right? On average, you might say that like delete one is always going to be as efficient or more efficient than delete many, but delete one, like, so basically it's going to be about like it's going to take half as long a time, right? Based on wherever the thing is, approximately, when you average it out. So that's one of the ideas between using the find one, delete one, is that when you know you only want one, use the one variant, because it'll just save you time and performance, and you don't have to go through the entire database to get the one thing you need. Cool, cool, cool. All right, so we've talked about using this through the shell, and the shell is a user interface. Now, kind of what's the counterpart of a user interface? This is a weird question. What's a user interface that's not for a user? An API, an application programming interface. So whereas user interface is here's the user, here's the program, let's talk. API is here's a program, here's another program, let's talk. Okay? So let's so what ends up happening is that we have to have a way of talking to this. And the databases provide their own APIs so that a program can talk to it. But then there has to be usually what we end up doing is you have a library on the side of your program, your like Node in this case, or Ruby on Rails when you get to it, that actually does the job of like providing a really friendly way for you to write your queries and to get them sent over to the database so the database can actually perform them. And that bit of software, that library, has a very specific name, which is a driver. So if you ever find yourself with, you know, server application framework X and database Y, and you want to talk from X to Y, you need to find the X driver for Y. In this case, we need to find the Node driver for MongoDB. So let's Google that. Node driver MongoDB. MongoDB Node.js driver. Cool. Now, this is very specific to two very specific technologies, but I'm going to save you some time. And if you find this out later and remember it and just feel a bit daft, at least you'll be daft for a good reason. What is the color of the header here? Yeah. It might be hard to see. It is brown. It is a dark brown. And there's some color blindness. What is the color of this header? It is indeed white. If you are trying to figure out how to get your Node program to talk to Mongo, and you pull me over for a mentor thing, and you're looking at documentation with a white header, I'm going to chortle like this. Like that. That's exactly how it sounds. So this is for the shell, whereas this is for the driver. And they work a little bit differently. That's for MongoDB. Why do they go to the wrong? No, they didn't. Okay, but this is actually the one you need to use, is this one, the 3.1 driver reference, which is still brown. I don't disagree with you. But you can see, let's take a look at these CRUD operations. And you'll notice the code looks a bit different. There's two things to notice. I'm all for it. Yeah, we're gonna get real zoomy. There's two things to notice that is different. So here's the insert one for the driver, and here's the insert one for this. So there's two things to note. What is users in this case?
Collection.
The collection, right? Here, instead of saying db.users, you'll say db.collection users. So that's the important thing. Here's the record to import. That's the same as it is here, right? Here's the record to import. Here's the record to import. Okay, or insert rather. But then I do a thing. There's a thing over here. There's a whole callback. So we're going to need that callback to be able to actually access the stuff, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. The other thing is that before, like, When we opened up the Mongo shell, that was the client connecting. Here we actually have to write code to connect to the client, to connect to Mongo. So let's do a quick demo of this. All right. Make directory Mongo demo. Yes. CD Mongo demo. I'm going to just create little npm project, npm init-y, because I'm lazy / busy. I'm going to import. So it's MongoDB. Let's go to node, or let's go to npm. MongoDB, the official MongoDB driver for Node.js. And yeah, so here's some examples of it working. Down here, here's some code examples. We're going to do the npm install MongoDB. DB. Oh, I have a new version of npm available. Cool, cool, cool. I'm going to create my index.js. All right, so now I'm going to say const MongoDB equals require MongoDB. Not sure why it thinks I have Emmer installed. Yeah. And I'm going to get the Mongo client equals MongoDB.Mongo client. Just want it in its own variable. Save me a bit of space. So with the Mongo client, I'm going to connect to a URL. So here's what that URL looks like. Const URL equals. Now, when you make a call to the web, generally speaking, what is the first 4 letters? HTTP. What does HTTP stand for? That's right, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. We're not going to be using that one. So part of it is that your brain is really like HTTP, right? Like and I struggle with this myself, like not writing this. We are not writing HTTP. We're using a different protocol. The protocol we're going to be using is MongoDB. And we're going to be talking to localhost 27017. That is the port that we're going to be using to talk to Mongo. And I'm going to say Mongo client dot connect to the URL. And then we have a callback. The callback is of, it's that node style callback, error first, and then the result that we want. Error client maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what we get. So whenever I have an API like this and I want to kind of explore how it works, I generally just start with like, I'm just going to connect to this thing. I'm just going to find out what I got as a result. So if error console.log error and put error in front of it, else console.log success client. Let us see what is up. Node index.js. Okay, cool. I got a thing. Whew! Did I ever? That's a stuff. So I have some sort of Mongo client object. So I think this is also the same thing as that. But now that I have that, I can grab a database. So here I'm going to say const berriesdb, or is it berrydb? It's berrydb, isn't it? Equals client.db. So instead of saying use berrydb, I'm saying client.db to get an access to this specific one. Berrydb. In fact, I'm wondering if I can. Yeah, we'll do that later. And then we have Once we have the DB, what's the next level?
Collection.
The collection, that's right. Const berries call equals berry DB dot collection, and then the name of it, which is berries. I also, just for the sake of exploration, I like to do a little exploration. I like to see what's up. I'm also going to see client. I was going to see if it had database names, but I don't think it does. All right, fair enough. Okay, leave that be. So we have the berries collection, and let's do a find. Let's just find us some berries. Berries call dot. Okay, this has a few things that should be familiar. Here's find and find one and delete and find one and replace and find one and update, right? So let's do a find. We have no query, so like it's the empty query, right? It gives us a cursor. What's that cursor all about? I don't know. Seems like a thing. Well, so when I started writing this, it said that I can put in a query and it returns a cursor of type any. Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what that does. That seems a little bit weird. What's a cursor? Is that when you just don't know what things are happening, you kind of curse at your computer? So let me... Okay, well, I don't know what it is, but apparently it has a toArray function, error docs. So I'm just going to do that. .toArray query error and berries, right? And so then I'm just going to say if query error console.log query error else console.log berries. Cool, cool, cool. Behold, I have picked some berries. Which is always a wholesome family outing. Come on. All right, so I've picked some berries. And I'm going to pass something here. Let's try where glycemic index less than 40. Let's see if that does nothing. Oh, I didn't save it. It would help if I saved. Cool, and then I have one where... So I'm able now to do all of my stuff. But you'll notice I've written it in this very frustrating way. You'll notice that things are starting to get further and further to the right of the screen. Yeah? You'll notice that things are starting to indent a while. They're just starting to get... You now have this... Your white space here forms what's known as the pyramid of doom here, right? Wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to write it like this? Maybe we could write something... I'm just spitballing here. But let's see what this would look like in a synchronous manner. It would be something like const client equals Mongo client dot connect URL. That'd be better, wouldn't it? Maybe we'll put a try catch around this. That's another story entirely. I could say const. I could basically take everything that was here, move that over. Oh. Like that, right? And then instead of saying to array, I'd be able to say, hey, const berries equals to array. Wouldn't this be great? And then we could kind of do whatever we're going to do with berries. Console log them berries. Wouldn't that be nice? Why can't it be that simple? Why are we bothering with this callback nonsense anyhow? Well, that is a question that we will talk about when we come back from break. Go get you some coffee. Either way, here comes the learning. So, so why? Why, you guys? Why? 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 Why the callback? Why couldn't we just written it like this?
Well, you need to be connected.
You need to be connected. It's asynchronous. Asynchronous is the word I was looking for. Um, so what does that mean? Asynchrony. So to understand this, you kind of have to understand a few things about how Node works, about how JavaScript works in general. And this is like not just JavaScript the language, because to you JavaScript is usually the language, right? But this is JavaScript like basically every JavaScript runtime, how they work. And basically, the big thing to know is that JavaScript is it's single-threaded, which basically means that the Node runtime is only ever doing one thing at a time. Now, it may switch between a bunch of tasks. It may be like, I am doing this, and now I am doing this, and now I am doing this. But it's not like it can't have two processes running at the same time. It can't, there's a main thread, and you have kind of one thing happening. Now, you can have other processes running at a time, but this actually goes into this async concept. So basically what happens is that if Node was able to do synchronous things, that means that like everything is in the process and we're just doing things one after the other. Add this, go this, loop this, move the cursor, do the thing, blah, 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 right? And that is kind of usually how we, especially like your week one, that's how you kind of do most of everything, right? But when we have some interruption of that, where it's like, actually, I can't do this because we're waiting on another process, or I can't do this because we're talking to another program entirely, or I can't do this because we're waiting on some response from some user, for instance, then we have to start breaking stuff up. And Node's mechanism for that is the callback. And one of Node's big virtues about how it was designed was it has this thing called non-blocking I/O. And that just basically means that it's never stuck waiting on anyone for anything. So I kind of want to demonstrate that. And I need some volunteers. Make sure I'm still in frame. Yeah, we got frame for days. So I'm going to need some, we're going to do a little bit of improv theater here. And I need some volunteers. So I need one person to be the database. I'm not sure if you had your hand up if you were holding an apple. Okay. Yeah, okay, then you get to be the database. All right. It requires you just sit there. All you have to do is sit there. You volunteered, so you get to be the database driver if you want to. Yeah, you come here. Just do you. You're cool. You're cool. All right, now I need a couple of people to be other tasks, other requests, other things that I'm supposed to do. So I'm going to need a couple of people to do that. Does anyone want to volunteer? What you have to do is just think of questions to ask me and then ask me those questions. Sure. Yeah. All right. Come on down. Come on down, Aaron. Blood flowing in your leg. Anyone else? Anyone else? I can pick on people, but it's better if they're like, yeah, I agree to this. You know what, Matt? I'm just gonna pick on you. Because you're close. Yeah. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. We need to kind of position ourselves. So you two, I need you to come over here. All right, and I want you to be in a queue. So, right, okay, so they represent all the other things that I'm supposed to be doing, all the other requests, all the other like async events that are coming in, right? All the other kind of things in my attention. And Shmoo is going to be the database driver. So what I want you to do, I'm going to hand you a query, and I want you to kind of walk slowly over to her. I know what your name is, Sarah Madro. So no, come back. You're not. We haven't even started yet. What we're going to do is you're going to walk slowly over to her. Then you have to spin around in your chair 3 times. Not even particularly quickly. We're not having a safety violation here. And then you hand it to you, and then you kind of walk slowly back.
That's her process.
That's her processing, right? So this is, she's going over to that system. The system processes, the response comes back, and then I deal with it, right? And this is other things that want my attention, other tasks I have to do. Okay?
What are you again?
And I am node. I am the node process. I should have clarified that.
And server. No, what's that?
Like I'm
Database.
database, right?
I'm driving.
Okay.
Node.
So
Query.
as soon as I pass off to her, you guys start asking me questions. So, and just you ask me questions because it's a queue. All right. So, hey, can you get me a connection to the database?
Okay.
Cool. I can't talk to you right now. I'm waiting for the database. I will get to you in a second. Okay, cool. Actually, can you also execute this query? Can you pass that over there and get that? I need some results. Aaron, we talked about this. I am really focused on what's happening over here right now, and I can't do other things.
Here you go.
Cool. All right, I'm going to print this out. All right, what was your question?
Can I have access to a specific page that I can't think of right now?
Yes.
Thank you.
I have to go to the database to get that, though. So, okay, so this is a blocking I.O. system. I can't really deal with things because I'm waiting. I'm stuck. So with non-blocking I.O., it goes a little more like this. Now, hey, I need this. Can you get me a connection to the database, please?
Yeah.
All right, what's the question?
Can I get the next page that I need?
Sure. I will start that process as well.
Can I get this very specific page?
Yes, I will start that process as well. Go ahead. And so now I can start dealing with other tasks. Okay, thanks. Actually, just wait a second because she had a question. She came in first. So,
I need access to a specific.
all right, here you go. Okay, yes, now I will take this. Can you have to wait a second because I'm just going to deal with this. Can you actually now get me a query?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so now what you're saying?
I need access to all the variables.
All right, here are all your variables. Come on.
I need access to.
Okay, you need to wait for a second. I'm going to deal with, okay, here's some of your stuff. All right, now I'm going to deal with this, and I'm going to print this. So which process was more efficient? The second one, right? All right, y'all can sit down. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand. They were very good and also incredibly indulgent. I appreciate that. Indulgence that I intend to totally take advantage of later. All right, so next time there'll be hats. All right, so I volunteer. I appreciate it. That I should have been paying attention to Slack as well. That should have been the other thing. So yeah, the idea here is that basically, if I can, is there a whiteboard setting here? Is it any good? I guess we'll find it. It's not even. All right. Okay. Also, really kind of praying that this is in any way legible. Yeah, this will do. So, just to visualize this again, if I have a node, it has a process that requests, make, so request connection. That's supposed to be a queue. It's not really a queue. I'm going to write it so it is a queue. Request connection, right? And here's our DB. And these are different processes, right? There's a boundary between them. They don't share memory. They don't share process. They're totally different applications. And so this it requests this, but it's sort of taking time, by the way. This is time on this axis, right? And then so this is able to do its processing, and it's kind of synchronous, right? It's like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to return a thing. And then, but that returns. And this thing is like, okay, get connection. Make query, right? And then that starts another thing. So the use of callbacks, the use of asynchronous mechanisms, basically lets us fill in this time with other stuff. We can actually start responding to other things. You could think of Node as having two piles on its desk. There is the stuff to do now pile and the stuff to do later pile. The stuff to do now pile is called the stack. You guys have seen the stack, right? Where it's like you kind of call functions and they kind of like undo themselves, right? And you have a process and you go through it and you're done with that process. Yay! And then you do something else. That is your stuff to do now pile. And once something is on the stuff to do now pile, you have to do it. And you can't do anything else until it's completed. But then there's the stuff to do later pile. And what happens is that when something comes in, be that a request, maybe it's even like when Shmoo came back, when the driver came back with stuff, it was put on the stuff to do later pile. It had to queue up behind the other things. And that's called the queue. And the queue is the first thing that went in is the first thing that comes out, right? Whereas the stack is first and last out. So it has a thing where it's like we just kind of put it on the end and we kind of wait for it. And this could be, sources of asynchronous include talking to other systems. It could include timeouts and delays. It could include, hey, we're waiting for someone to click. Have you guys done like submit events and click events in jQuery yet? That's another form of asynchronous. That's another thing where we have to put in a callback. So we basically say, hey, I'm going to start this process or I'm going to wait for this process, and then here's what's going to happen when I'm done. And what we end up doing is that we can think of this stuff as this very synchronous. I'm going to get this, I'm going to get that. But here we understand, like, okay, it is exactly like that. We're just going to, instead of making it a variable that's returned, I realize I'm not looking at the screen now. I'm on it. I'm on it. Also feels kind of weird, like coming out from like, surprise. So we're just going to take what was this code, pass it to a function, and put all that stuff in, right? So sometimes it helps to write it synchronously first, and then move it into the asynchronous format. Oh, this to array, we don't get berries from it. We have to say errors and berries. And then but that's why asynchronous code, that's why we write things like this, is so that Node can focus on, like, I don't have to, when I'm waiting for something, I don't have to be staring at the door waiting for that thing to come in. I can be living my best life, you know? I can be reading a book, writing a book. Just because you're gone and I'm waiting for you to come back doesn't mean I can't be, you know, dancing around the kitchen to Taylor Swift. That part may or may not be autobiographical. So, that is my bit on asynchronous. That is my bit on why we do asynchronous code like this. That is my bit on why the callback exists. It's the same thing as the return value, but this permits us to do async code, which is handy. So, all right. One other thing I want to note. In your exercises, you might do one of these bits of code, and you might have a line that says client.close, right? If I say, if I node index here, you'll notice that this thing hasn't done yet. It's not closed. It's not stopping. I have to manually stop it with Control-C. If I said, when I had my thing, client.close, well then what would happen is this would get mad at me. URL is not defined for a nerf. What happens is now you see it ended, which is awesome. And some of you are going to be tempted to say client.close in your Tweeter app. Don't. Once you have that connection to the database, that's the connection you're going to be reusing. You're going to be using that same connection to do all of your database operations, so you're never really going to close it. It's going to close when the program closes, and until then, you keep listening. Okay? All right. So, Now we get to what full stack is, what full stack means. The full stack process. Like I said, this is a big day. This is an important step. You have all the things you need to be full stack developers. And we're able now to build an app that is full stack. I mean, why bother with a database anyway? What was wrong with kind of creating a little memory object in Tiny App, right? Why wouldn't I just keep doing that for all my apps? Can anyone think of the problems with that? It disappears. You create a bunch of data, you stop your app, it's gone. It's bad news. Yeah, if you have a power outage, all your data is gone. All your data is being held in the volatile memory, and volatile memory is called volatile memory for a reason. The reason is that it's volatile. Not sure if I had to say that. So now we have persistence. It'll actually stay for longer. Awesome. And there's also another problem with so let's say you run your Tiny App, right? And you have your data. And you want to say to yourself, I wonder how often someone puts in a Reddit link. How do you query that from outside the app? How do you get into the memory of the process to be able to do things that you didn't intend to do when you built the app? Not wrong. You can't. It's totally closed off. Right? If you had included some like specific query stuff in there beforehand, yeah, you could do that, but generally speaking, that not only is that memory totally evanescent, given to vanishing, it's also absolutely inaccessible. It is held in a lockbox, and at some point the lockbox is gonna disappear, and you're never gonna be able to do smarter things with that data. You can't have two apps running off the same data, can you? Bad news. So this is why we have full stack. Now, I'm going to address a question that I often get asked later in the course, and I'm going to address it with that characteristic, slightly condescending chuckle. And that question is, well, how do I attach React to Postgres? Or in this case, how do I attach jQuery to Mongo? You don't. I see some shaking heads. I'm happy about them shaking heads. You don't attach jQuery to Mongo. You don't attach your HTML to Mongo. You don't. You attach the jQuery, references a server, and the server talks to Mongo, and then it comes back. So we talked about asynchrony. Did a whole dance about that. Wasn't enough dancing, I don't think. All right. So when it comes to like a Tiny App, server-side rendering app, it's going to be the browser. Browser makes an HTTP request. Server receives request. Server makes query. And by query, I should say server performs database operations. I should also spell it correctly. Server receives feedback. Server takes data, renders HTML, serves HTML in response. Right? Okay. So that's server side. Server rendered. I'm just going to make all this. And then when we're doing a front end centric kind of an Ajax app. You guys have heard about Ajax, right? What's Ajax? Right. Well, that's asynchronous JavaScript and excellent. All right, so this is basically we have a front end app that then makes requests, right? So this is still going to be user performs some interaction or time elapses or something. Maybe. HTTP client, or so browser client, or maybe even a mobile client, right? It's the same thing how mobile client works. Makes HTTP request. Server receives requests. Server performs DB operations. Server receives feedback from DB op. And then server takes data, renders JSON or XML, serves JSON or XML in response. Client receives data and, updates the UI. So it receives the data and then it changes the UI somehow to reflect that new data, right? But this is all still happening. No matter what happens, the client has to talk to the server first. And this is really important. We don't want to hook them up directly because we want the server to be making decisions like, actually, should you be able to see that? Or, yes, you're logged in. But I want to make sure that this Tony doesn't get that Tony's messages, right? I want to know exactly which kind of Tony you think you are. I'm going to look at my Tony tables. Right? So it does like that security thing. It does that logic thing. It's a good way of like, oh, actually, I have a few things I have to do. For instance, when you make a new user in TinyApp, you want to do an email check. Okay, so that's going to be one database operation. You find out, oh, cool, I can do the insert. Awesome. And then you do the insert, right? So it's able to chain a few of these database operations if possible. Creates these processes. So that is, so the question of how do I connect this database to the front end, it's almost always going to be actually you have to build a server in the middle. That's not always the way it is. There are a few cases where that's not the way it is. But for the most part, that's the way it is. Okay. All right, so Shmoo has been kind enough to donate her TinyApp for dissection. And what we're going to do is I want to create, I basically want to, it is now 10:28. I don't want to take too long. I basically want to set up Mongo for TinyApp. So I want to take the TinyApp, I want to modify it to talk to Mongo. And I want to kind of port as many operations as possible over to this. We're going to see how far we get. Okay, so let's start with, let's actually load Mongo into the system. Okay. Oh, did I even do, I might not have done npm install. Huh? I'm not in the right folder. Well spotted, Mr. Ivans. Alright, so npm install. That's taken a moment. We can start writing. Why not? So one thing I'm going to do is, what's the first thing I have to do with any Mongo app that I talk to in Node? Like, what's the first step of the app itself?
Requiring it?
Well, it was requiring it. That's true. Well, yeah. So I require the driver, and then the driver. What's the first thing the driver has to do? Has to connect, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say const Mongo client equals require MongoDB dot Mongo client, or I can get a little ES6 savvy here. Just I can do that, which accomplishes the same thing. You know, you're right. I'll write it the other way. That's fine. Okay, so I have this app. I have this setup stuff. This setup is fine, generally speaking, but I want to be able to kind of be able to do the Mongo operations. Like, I want to set all this stuff up so I have the database available. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a spot here after some of this basic setup. Yeah. I'm also going to delete that and also make this kind of fresh. All right, so I guess here, after my sort of universal variables, yeah, this is a good spot. Mongo client dot connect. I'm going to connect to http://local host, not HTTP. See, this is why I said it, because I always forget. MongoDB, localhost 27017. Right, and this gives us the error client. I'm going to console.log, or sorry, if connection error, else, then we're going to do everything else. Or maybe I'll even say like, and return, and then not have to do the else. Yeah, I think that's going to save me an indent. So we're going to take I'm going to take this. There. The very bottom. Okay. Node mon express server. Oh, he is mad. Cannot find module MongoDB. You know why I can't find it? Because I didn't add it. npm I. npm isInstall. My favorite alias for install. Yeah, that's actually legit. You can write isInstall. Basically, people kept on making that mistake, and they just added it. I didn't want to do it twice, though. But now that's just what our day looks like. Yeah, I know. I just say. All right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, my Mongo is on 27017, but the server app is still on 8080. Right? So my browser has to look at 8080 to get HTTP requests, but the server is going to be making requests to 27017. Because if we were doing it to the same place, it would know if it was an HTTP request or a Mongo request, and it'd get all befuddled. We want it to be befuddled. So, should we start with the user stuff, or should we start with... That's the URL stuff. Why not? Okay. Now, I'm pretty sure I went through and... oh, maybe we should do user first. Yeah, let's do user first. We're going to make that happen. Okay. URL database checker. Okay, so what can we do with a user? The user. Let's go to URL's ID. There's get user object. We'll get to that in a second. URL database checker, get URLs. Get u/ID, get login. Okay, so cool. Cool. Now we have get user object by user ID. So this is going to be the first one that we're going to make into something else, right? And we could imagine that here we would say sonar const user equals get user object user, right? Like that. Except because ES6 is awesome, we can just write that shorthand. I feel like I should probably like avoid shorthands for the sake of this. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make that get user object. Well, we're going to leave that one as it is. We're going to go to register. Actually, we keep on using this, don't we? This const template vars user get user object. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this a what do you call it? Middleware. A middleware at the top that will get used every single time. So I know if you're not comfortable with the middleware concept, it's basically just, it's going to be a bit of stuff that, like, it's going to go through this thing first and then go to everything else. So we'll make sure to add the user. So I'm going to say app.use recres next. And I am going to, at this point, we are above the sessions, yeah? Okay. We're after the sessions, which is what I wanted. And so I'm going to say, we said get user object, right? Get user object, yeah. And we're going to say rec.session. Is it user ID, I want to say? Yeah, that's the thing. So I'm going to make a function that returns error user. And it's going to say here, hey, if user, let's just say rec.user equals user. And we can even say that if we say res.locals.user equals user, then what we're saying is, oh, by the way, add this to the bag of variables that is sent to the template every single time. So now EJS will always have a user if it exists. Or it'll have undefined if it doesn't. So either way, I'm going to say that, which I can make to one line by just saying. Okay. Now, this is, of course, going to get super mad because we don't actually have, like, anything yet, right? So this doesn't work just yet. So at the top of my Mongo client connect, I'm also going to say const db equals client.db tiny-app-7-jan-2019 fresh-2-death. All right. My point being, I have not created that database yet, right? And I'm going to say const users call equals db.collection users. If I haven't created the database yet, I must not have created the users yet, right? Users collection yet. Okay. So now I'm going to go all the way down to get user object. Get object. There it is. The cookie. So this is going to be based on the ID, right? And I also have a callback because it's asynchronous. And by the way, I should mention with asynchrony, we're going to have a lot better ways of dealing with asynchrony in the future that we're going to teach you. Because callback hell is awful. So there's going to be there's some better mechanisms for this. How are we doing? All right, cool. So what I'm going to say here is, if I were just doing this just to be like, hey, this is still working, right? I could say users at ID and then CB null user object, right? This isn't connected yet, but at least it's working the way that it would work already, right? This is pretending to work. Because all that get user object is supposed to do, yeah, like from the outside, it doesn't say anything about Mongo, does it? It's just supposed to get a user object and then call the CB with that user object. So right now it works, and we can kind of go through every other version of that's the one I want. That one not so much. That one not really. Nope. Also nope. One more little bit of not so much. Okay, so now I'm creating it once and using it once, and that's what I wanted. So now, ostensibly, if you go to localhost 8080, and we register, Joel@Joel.Joel, password, don't look. All right. Assignment to constant variable, express server 197.12. Oh, right. Interesting. Oh, that's because, yeah, I changed that to that. I might have rewritten some of your code. I might have rewritten it in the break. Just. Okay, so now I'm logged in as Joel@Joel.Joel. I'm gonna log out. Log in. Hopefully this all. Yeah. So I'm cool. Well, my app works. I guess I should. I should limit the scope of my expectations here. Okay, so this is essentially working-ish. So let's actually rewrite this so that when it grabs a user, it grabs it from MongoDB. All right?
Oh, right now it's still just being saved in the...
Yeah, it's still just local. Okay. Still just local. So I just made it a callback version. That's all. So yeah. Get user object. Okay, so now I'm going to say users call. How many of these do I want to find? One, right? So dot find one. And I'm going to have this. I'm going to be using. Actually, do I want to make my own IDs or do I want to let Mongo do its thing? I'll make my own IDs. So we're going to say ID, where ID is ID, and then yeah. So I like the generator, and we have a callback error, error and result. So I'm actually just going to pass this through, right? And up here I'm going to say, for the sake of inspection, console.log initial user and user. So, right. Yeah, but I think it's saying cannot read property email if null, is what it's saying. So, let's see what. Oh, because it's saying it's null and not undefined. Fair enough. So all I'm going to do with EJS is just say. Actually, I don't want to change the EZS. That's one more bit of code I don't want to change. So I'm just going to say that here. Yeah, it's going to be user or undefined. Little bit of truthy falsy magic here. So basically, if it's a falsy value, I'm going to make sure it's this falsy value. Otherwise, it's going to be just that. Yeah, basically it says like user, and if it's null, then it's falsy, right? If it's undefined, then it's falsy. So I just say either way. If you're a falsy value, the specific falsy value I want you to be is undefined. Right. Okay, so that is that. I'm going to go over to register. So we have app get register. That's not what we need to change, is it? No. It is the post to register. Okay, so now we want to check email match checker rec body email. Obviously, this needs to be put in the callback form. So I can say const emails match equals sorry, didn't mean to scratch the mic. Right, that's how I would do that as to make it synchronous. And then we're going to say error emails match and just copy all that code. Which means we also have to say, let's make this email match checker work that way. Also, I might put, oh yeah, I think I copied instead of, there we go. Okay, I might put the this first. If kind of reverse the way these work. So I'm just going to say, hey, if I'm missing the body email or I'm missing the body password, I'm going to just stop here. Return. And then I try to do the email match. So
You have that if missing and missing the first conditional.
you are correct. That was meant to be an OR. This is a smart class. I'm liking this. You guys spot things. I appreciate it. Okay, so now email match checker. Let's do that, right? It has to have an email email match checker. Email match checker. Email. And now instead of returning something, I have to right. So CB. And I'm going to say here, users call. I basically want to see, hey, is there one with that? In fact, there might be possibly, let's see, Mongo filter exists. Just to see, like, hey, is there one with this? Well, nah, that's not exactly what I want. So I'm just going to say users.call find one where the filter is that the email matches the email that I brought in, right? And my CB here is going to have error results. And, you know, I guess if I have one, maybe I just want to say if error. I'll maybe even say just CB error and bang bang result. Bang bang result just turns it into a Boolean. The bang turns it into a false, and then the other bang turns it into the truthy version of it, right? So I'm just turning this into a truthy or falsy. Okay, so then up here, email match checker. Well, here. So now this goes on that. That should work, right? And we'll make a few of them and then kind of see if it works. So otherwise, so if that's not the case, we want to do that and return. Otherwise, this whole new user thing. Well, we're going to do another error new user. And I'm going to say if error or is emails a match. And then everything I have here, I'm going to put there. Which means that now I have to go to insert user. All right. There we go. So I have this stuff. I return users at ID. Here's where I actually like put it into. I did rewrite this just in case you're. All right. I did put this into the database. So let me actually do the insert. Also don't know why I have two of those. So I'm going to say const or users call dot insert one. I'm going to pass in this object that is the inserted object, right? And then when it's done, I have error results. Now let's take a moment and actually take a look what the error result is for something I create, right? I'm going to, instead of this finding thing, I want to say Barry's call dot insert one. I'm going to say, I guess name. Let's look at the a berry from my home state of Oregon. Let's look at the boysenberry. So boysenberry. Insert one name. Boysenberry. I don't really care about tags, but I think it flowers. And glycemic index, let's just say it is 35, right? And I want to see what I get for a callback here. So error results console.log writing error results. And this is just my way of saying, like, I want to know what this actually is going to do. So node MongoDemo index. Okay, so what it did was it has the ops, and the ops is what we get back. That's actually the record. Okay? So I can say here, if I wanted to return that thing, error results, CB, if error, CB error, else, CB null, and results.ops at 0. So now, hopefully, this is connected. I'm going to open up another thing here. I'm going to go to my MongoDB. I'm going to show DBs, which I don't have this DB there yet. What I say it was. So it was some stupid name that I regret writing out the whole way now. Use tiny-app-7-jan-2019-fresh-2-death. Okay. Here's a joke. Here's a note, by the way. When you're making a joke, when you have to retype it, it's always less funny the next time. If you have some joke where it's like, I'm going to type this, ha ha ha, and they have to do it over and over again, after a while you're going to be like, this was so stupid, which is a big part of my life now. So localhost 8080. Let's go to register. Did it hang? No. It did hang. Why did it hang? Oh, error user. User undefined next. I feel like it is trying to go to URLs and not getting happy with that. app.get/register. Let's make this rec.user. That way it's actually based on like whether the user exists, right? Let's try this again. Localhost 8080. I'm looking at the wrong one. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to go to register. Here I am. Joel, 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 Joel. And it broke. And it broke because CB is not defined at userscall.insert1. So I think insert user email. That's right. I did not actually pass ACB. This is why I have ESLint that usually tells me these things. So let's try it again. Although, I'm probably going to have to, I think now if I look at this, show collections, it's going to show me that I have a users. I'm going to say db.users.find. And indeed, there is Joel who's been added with his whole password and everything, right? So let's try this again with a different, try Leon at leon.leon. Oh, you little what's it. Results is not defined. Right. It is results. One more time. Tony at tony.tony. Okay, there we are. Now we're logged in as Tony at tony.tony. And we could log in as the other guys if we made a login routine. Ooh, let's do the login. So, post to /login. So I'm going to make a authorization check function. It'll be pretty simple. Function authorize. It's going to take in email password and of course ACB. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a call to, like, I can't tell Mongo to do the bcrypt thing, right? Can't do that. So what I can do is say users call dot find one by email, right? And that's going to have error user. I can say here, you know, obviously if error, then CB error. Else, if else, now I can do bcrypt dot compare sync, right? If bcrypt dot compare sync. I'm also already doing this in callback fashion, so let me actually do this with a callback. So I'm going to say password. I'm going to say, oh, also, hey, if bang user, if there's no user, then just CB null undefined. Else. I know, we're getting into more of this callback hell. I know. There's ways out of it, though, but that's not a talk for today. So, error same. And then here I'll say if error, CB error, else. Also, this could be an if else. So at least we have that. If error, CB error, else, if same, CB null user, because hey, that's a good user. Else, CB null. I guess we don't even have to say undefined. Okay. Whew. Everyone, these have been a bunch of steps. But now we have basically where we find a user, we do the compare, and so we can have all that authorization logic in one big thing. So when I go to login, post login, I'm going to say authorize by rec.body.email, rec.body.password, user. if user rec.session.userid equals user.id res.redirect URLs. Else? So there's a couple nice things about the way I've written this. One is that now, ignore everything on the select. Now my thing is just this login route is just concerned with routing. And like it passes a thing, it doesn't know how this works, which is good. This still works. Res.clearCookieSession. Actually, this should be rec.session equals null. All right, so now I'm still, let me do an RS real quick just to make sure we're clear. All right, so here I am, URLs, logged in as Tony. I'm going to log out. I'm going to log in. And now I should be able to say joel@joel.joel, password Joel. And it is saying nothing. Let me make sure that I got these right. Find password, authorize. If bang user, cb null. Password, sorry. User.password. That was my mistake there. Right? Because we something like that. So let me try this again. Log in, joel@joel.joel, password Joel. Joel. Email or password did not match, so at least now it's mad at me for that reason. And
Registered before you had put the Mongo database. You connected to Mongo.
no, I should be in here. There's joel@joel.joel, password blah blah blah. Password, user.password, error same. If same, guess I can find that later. I could also just write this as if user and bcrypt.comparesync, just write it like that. Password, user.password, cb user else, cb null. Oh, there it is. CB there. That's my mistake. CB null user. Let's go back to login. Okay. Else if user and password. This is being passed as rec.body.password, right? Headers. Interesting. Let's go to authorize. Rec.body.password. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. If user. There it is. Error user. Log in. There we are, finally. So it's just about those, just remembering where those callbacks are. So, callbacks. So this is how we kind of connect things to Mongo. We set things up in a in future versions as you get used to other methods of dealing with asynchrony that are like that make things easier but take a little while longer to use. So kind of like you could walk from here to Chilliwack, or you could drive from here to Chilliwack. But to drive from here to Chilliwack, you'd first have to learn how to drive a car, which actually takes you longer, right? Well, maybe this time I'll walk, but if I'm going to keep on going to Chilliwack, I'll actually learn how to drive a car. So there are some other mechanisms for dealing with this that make the writing easier, but they are a little more complicated in terms of just learning them the first time. So that is, yeah, that's how this works. And so a good exercise, if you want to get used to this when you have time again, someday, is to be able to just take your Tiny app and connect everything to Mongo. And then once you have that, next week you'll be able to connect it all to Postgres. Who connects? I know. I'm sorry. I should have waited till you weren't drinking to tell you about that. Do Tiny app 3 times? Are you mad? All right. So, are there any questions? Clear as mud. Well, okay. So, and that's kind of the point. I will let you know that if you are, that you've seen this, we've discussed the theory, we've discussed how this fits in the full stack world. We've done an example of this, right? Where we have a request that goes to the server and then goes to the database. Yeah? So this is going to be muddy until you use it. Until you use it a few times. Until you start being like, okay, well, I have that. Wonder what it's going to look like when I do my next bit of work. And just to let you know that that's okay. That this isn't going to make sense until you've practiced it a few times. But then when you have, you will find yourself being able to kind of build these out. So you have that to look forward to. All I've really shown you is kind of like the general shape of the problem, but eventually you'll kind of get into that yourself. All right? Okay, cool, cool. I will send out notes soon. Bye. Applauders? What?